right. So I welcome you all to the game-changing webinar session. In today's session, we've been joined by all the regular students as well as this session is open to all. I mean, everyone can join this session. So let me just first give you a brief introduction of mine. My name is Saniya Asif and I am an ACCA member. For the past 19 years, I've been teaching mainly taxation as well as advanced taxation UK to local as well as international students. And just quickly move towards the agenda that we have to follow in 2 days webinar session. First of all, I am going to give you an introduction about what the taxation syllabus is. And despite the fact many of you are already familiar with this thing, but considering that we are going to include each and every one, then I will be touching each and everything which is a part of your taxation syllabus, which is important, which one should know before attempting an exam. And then we'll be discussing the formats, but the formats will be discussed while practicing through the recent most attempt. And then as what I've said, that I'll be sharing few questions with you people, where I'll be telling you that what techniques we will be applying in order to grab score. And I'll emphasize on the importance of the technical articles. And then I'll be sharing the list of important questions with you all. Though I have already shared the list of important questions with my students in the enrolled students group, but this will be shared once again with each and everyone. And then in the end of this 2 day session, I'll be sharing a study plan for 10 days. I mean, if you are thinking that how you are going to strategize your things, how would you be revising the material, how many questions you will have to practice, these all things are basically being summed up in a plan that I have made for you people, which you people have to follow in the last 10 days. If you haven't made any uh, I mean, if you yourself have not made any study plan, then you may use the study plan that I have made for you people. Otherwise, you people are like quite professional. You must have made so many schedules for your own self. I mean, keeping your other things in your mind, the other activities, and the time constraint that you are having. Obviously, that study plan is most feasible for you people, which is why I'm not saying that the study plan that I'll be sharing with you people by the time this 2 days game changing webinar session would come to an end would be the most suitable answer to all of your problems. But it's like if someone does not have any study plan, then they may benefit out of it. Okay, so first of all, let me just emphasize upon the syllabus of your taxation. In your syllabus of taxation, majority chapters are found over the concept of income tax. This is like the most important topic of your syllabus. And then another chapter from which a greater proportion of questions are expected to be tested, that is corporation tax. Then there is another important type of tax that's called CGT. CGT stands for capital gains taxes. Afterwards, we have inheritance taxes, and then last but not the least, we have VAT, the value added tax. Okay, though it is not written anywhere, but we expect that almost 25 to 30 marks will be projecting the rules related to income tax. Well, 20 to 25 marks will be tested with regards to corporation tax. Then 15 to 20 marks are expected to touch the concepts related to capital gains taxes. Then from 10 to 15 marks. Usually it is about 10 marks, but 10 to 15 marks could be found in respect of inheritance tax implication. And then 8 to 10 marks could be set in order to test your knowledge in relation to value added taxes. So majority of the marks are being tested out of the rules related to income tax computation, which is why majority of the chapters out of your syllabus are comprising over the rules relevant to income taxes, the type of the tax which has to be paid by UK resident individuals. Okay. So the learning material that I have already shared with you people over the LMS, that is precisely sufficient enough. I mean, you must be having the e-notes, even you are having the PDF of your PowerPoint slides. This is like sufficient in order to cover all the rules related to income tax, as well as the rest of the types of the taxes are concerned as well. I mean, there is no need to touch any of the book, either it is by Kaplan or BPP, if you really want to cover everything timely and you would really want to have a time for the sake of practice as well. But if there is any student who is basically aiming for distinction, then of course, if you are aiming for securing the highest possible marks in your country, then I would suggest then few chapters are to be read out of your study text, and precisely that should be Kaplan's study text, because that's something which we prefer as far as taxation as well as advanced taxation syllabus is concerned. It's about chapter number 1, the introduction of taxes, and then the chapters which are related to administration aspects, as in the self-assessment rules related to income taxes, then the rules related to how and when the corporation tax liabilities are to be paid, when the CGT liability is to be paid, which forms, which deadlines we have to follow. So is the case with VAT and inheritance taxes. I mean, all the regulatory procedures, the dates, deadlines, these all are to be covered out of study text if you want to secure highest possible marks. But if you want to uh, grab a good passing score in 60s or 70s, then it is not mandatory to go through the study text. Your e-notes and PowerPoint slides are sufficient enough to let you have a good score. Okay, let me just tell you the majority of the students say that they really find this administration thing very tricky. It takes a lot of time and they tend to forget this thing. And well, I admit that these all things are correct, because there are lots of deadlines, steps which one needs to follow as far as the administrative procedures are concerned. I just hope that my voice is clear. Is that so? Is my voice clear? Okay. Is that now going fine? Or is the issue still persisting? I do admit that when you say that it is like hard to remember the dates, then you are altogether right. It is actually hard to learn these dates and cram them and till they are examinable. Let me just show you. I've just opened the Kaplan kit in front of you, and I'm just going to show you that where these few pages are found, which are basically a blessing in disguise, because on these pages you will find all the administrative rules, dates, in a shortest possible manner. So this is like a concise yet comprehensive thing which one needs to have. Let me just show it to you. There you go. So this is like time limits and election dates. I remember that I have shared this document with my students already in the old group. See, this is like showing access. Then again, for self-employed persons, and then you may see that there is like the regulatory procedures related to VAT written over here as well. So this is like all about 4 pages with dates, which obviously you need to remember. Just keep on like revising on, I mean, every alternate day, and I then hope that by the time you will be taking your exam, this time less markation points are given in your syllabus. But my voice is clear now. Is that breaking up? Okay, just give me a minute. Is that now clear? All right. So I just wish that things would go smooth. Okay, so I was just saying that nobody should be leaving any type of tax behind. You should have to go through each and everything, though I admit that one cannot have a good grip over each and everything, but it's like you will have to cover each and everything. No matter, some points must have been remembered completely. There will be few points which are like quite shaky, but there is like supposed to be nothing in the syllabus which you would say in the end that you have not touched at all. You really need to go through each and everything, right? And I have told you that if you are aiming to secure a distinction, that you really need to go through the introductory chapter out of the Kaplan study text, as well as those chapters which lay down administrative rules. All right. As you all know, the TX has got the highest pass rate amongst all the applied skill papers. This is a kind of motivating line for each and every person who is going to take up their exam in March, because obviously when students start um, preparing for taxation, one thing that they complain always, that there are lots and lots of rules in the whole syllabus. The syllabus is quite comprehensive, and well, they are right, but yet in the end, majority of them tend to get a fruitful result in terms of like getting their paper passed, and that's also in the first attempt. But that doesn't matter whether you have passed your exam in first attempt or not. I mean, there must be like few students taking our session, or maybe they'll be going through the recording of the session, who had unfortunately not been able to pass the exam in the first attempt. So let me just pinpoint few things that why usually students fail. So all those who had once failed their TX exam, they should not repeat the mistakes. I'll be like suggesting you the solution to overcome their problems as well. And whosoever is going to appear in exam for the very first time, they really need to take these points in mind so that they would not be repeating such mistakes. Okay, so the first problem is time management. If someone is going to leave the paper behind, if someone is not going to complete their paper, that would be leaving a bad impression on the mind of your examiner. So it should not be done. Right. So, how would you then be able to take care of this thing? Number one, you really need to keep a strict eye on the question that you are basically going through. Your exam is a computer based exam. Well, this is something which you know already, and it is of 3 hours long paper, which is of 100 marks in total, out of which 50 marks are the passing score. Okay, so 3 hours would mean that you have got 180 minutes in order to cater 100 marks. These 100 marks are to be fully attempted. Now, that would mean that for the sake of securing each mark, you have, as per standard, 1.8 minutes. So you really need to keep a track of all the questions, as in, when you start with section A, as in your exam, you will be having three sections, section A, B, and C. Section A will be having 15 OTs of 2 marks each. So that would mean that in section A, you'll be dealing with 30 marks question, and every mark has to be solved in 1.8 minutes. That would mean that how many minutes you will be having altogether in order to solve section A? That is what? 54 minutes, right? And then in section B, you will be having 3 OT cases, and every OT case will be having 5 OTs, and every OT will be of 2 marks each. So it's like when you'll be having 5 OTs in every OT case, and there are 3 OT cases. So that would mean that altogether you'll have to go through 15 OTs. Well, every OT will be carrying 2 marks. So once again, this will be of 30 marks in total. And in order to secure each mark, you are given with 1.8 minutes. So altogether, you'll be having 54 minutes. So that would mean that when you start solving section A, you really need to have a look at your watch, at the clock, that what time is that. And within 54 minutes, you need to get done with section A questions. If you are, let's say, going to take, let's suppose, 60 minutes in order to deal with section A, that would mean that you have taken 6 extra minutes, and these 6 extra minutes shall have to be compromised either from section B or section C. But you really need to keep these things in your mind. If you just keep on like taking this planning aspect throughout your 3 hours exam session, that basically will give you a strength to get done with your exam on time. And see, with section C, as it will be carrying 3 constructed response questions, the first question will be of 10 marks, while question number 2 and 3 will be carrying 15 marks each. So altogether, this part will be of 40 marks. And in order to deal with 40 marks, one will be having once again 1.8 minute standard. And that's how many minutes one should use for the sake of completing their section C. That would be like 72 minutes, right? So 72 minutes are basically allowed in order to deal with section C. All right. With section C, we know that question number 2 will be comprising over income tax rules, and question number 3 of worth 15 marks will be covering corporation tax rules. So, keeping all these things in mind, and especially a check on the time, will eventually lead you completing your paper on time. And it used to be said, though it is not confirmed, that for instance, if someone is like going to secure, let's say, 47 marks or 48 marks, I mean, if someone tends to secure in between 46 to 50 marks, that person is like very close to pass their paper. Usually, examiners go through their entire paper once again in order to give them a leverage. They usually try on their own to let the students pass the paper, and that would only be done if the paper has been fully solved. So for instance, if there is a student who has secured 48 marks, sorry, in the end, but his paper is not complete, the examiner is not going to do this hassle once again in order to go through entire section C once again in order to see that whether he could be able to secure 1 to 2 marks in order to pass his exam. But if someone has secured, let's suppose, 48 marks and his paper is complete, then examiner usually try going through the script once again in order to see that if there happens to be some provision of letting him pass his paper. So this is how impression is like that important, which is why you really need to complete your exam. And usually, students find their exam difficult if they do not have sufficient practice. So, you really need to do the practice on a comprehensive scale. This is basically the time where you should now get done with the syllabus and start doing the revision and start doing the practice. I mean, by 15th of February, maximum time limit I'm basically stating, by 15th of February, everyone should be get done with the syllabus coverage, and they should start revising their start revising their, sorry, syllabus, as well as doing the practice. And practice should be done. Practice should be done from Kaplan kit. It does contain comprehensive questions with respect to section A, B, and C. And well, you people have to try solving each and every question related to section A and B, because together section A and B would let you score 60 marks in total. Well, if someone has like appropriately attempted section A and B, these two sections are sufficient enough to let a person pass their exam. So you really need to do 100% practice out of the Kaplan revision kit when it comes to section A and section B questions. But as far as section C is concerned, if you have time, then try doing as many questions as possible. Otherwise, I have shared the list of important section C questions with my students, and for the rest of the students, this will be shared soon. All right. And there's another source through which section A and section B questions can be practiced, and that is through Study Hub. Study Hub is a great resource where you may do the practice related to section A and section B. Well, it is up to you whether you would like to do the practice of section A and B questions out of the Kaplan revision kit or the Study Hub. That's totally up to you. But whatever the source you are going to choose, you have to get done with 100% of the questions, either they are OTs or OT cases, right? And there is like one more thing which you need to learn. you will have to take a start with the easier question first. So, for instance, if I start with section A, let's suppose section A, question number one seems to be difficult. Just leave that. Don't waste much time on it. Then you come to question number two. You find it difficult, leave that. Then come to question number three. You find it easy, solve it. So, this is how you will have to get done with as many easy questions as possible first. And then once you are done with each and everything, you will find few questions which are still left behind, which you initially thought to be difficult, but now you have wisely utilized your time in doing those questions first, for which you have got a good grip, which were making sense in the first go. And I mean, if you just think in a way that I will have to deal with all the questions in a sequence. I mean, if question number one feels to be difficult, let me just get done with it first, and then I'll go to question number two. See, question number one will definitely be taking much time, must be taking double time. And this is how, if you just get stuck at each and every point, this would be like resulting into what? Your time will start getting reduced down for those questions in which you are pro, which in which you have got a good grip. So kindly try doing the easier question first and then do difficult questions in the last. This is another technique in order to deal with the paper management issue, I mean, exam management issue. Is this thing clear? And then, obviously, the most important issue is the poor technical knowledge. You really need to try cover all the topics. This is something which I have already told you. And then when I'll be like taking you people through section C questions, I'll tell you that all the descriptive questions are to be answered in such a way that you will be addressing to the numbers which are associated with that particular requirements. For instance, if you are given with a theoretical question of for 3 marks, you will have to produce 3 valid points. If you are given with a question, theoretical one, which is of, let's suppose, worth 5 marks, then you'll have to write down 5 valid points. So this is how the sufficient securing according to the marks associated with the requirement are to be followed. If you are producing insufficient number, insufficient points, then this would lead to eventually not securing enough for an exam which is otherwise seemed to be like relatively easier to you. And then, sorry, one more thing, that as I have said that practice is must. Then doing the practice on the paper, I mean, just looking at the kit and doing the solutions on the paper, that is not always sufficient. Try doing some practice on the CBE platform as well. And for that purpose, I would suggest that you people really need to appear in mock exam. This is must. See, you haven't taken your mock exam before, you haven't taken your TX exam before. So you know the fact that there is like section A, B, and C, but this is like going to give you a good exercise in order to go through entire exam in a single go. And that's all also under the exam simulation conditions. I mean, you'll be given a time period of 3 hours. A mock is going to start at a certain specific time and it is going to get done at a certain specific time. And this is how you will learn that how you will be dealing with all of these sections, and that's so within a given time period of 3 hours. And that's also not on the paper but on the CBE platform. So when you get yourself familiarized with the CBE portal, that is going to give you a greater advantage at the point when you will appear in the real exam. Okay. CBE platform, they have updated the practice papers as far as FA25 is concerned. Yes, practice set has been adapted according to FA25 now, which is like not relevant to you people. Similarly, there are many papers which you may find. I mean, many past exam attempts are there on the platform which are related to either FA23 or FA22, which is obviously not to be done on the CBE platform. Then what you can do, It is pre-December mock. There is pre-March 26 mock. And by the way, I would suggest do not do it right now, because this is the same mock that we will test you people in your mock. And this is like going to be checked by me. And I'll be giving you a detailed feedback regarding improving your performance and all. So pre-March 26 mock, pre-December 25 mock, and there are two exam sets. It's like March, June 25 and September, December 25 exam attempt. They could also be done on the exam portal. And you might have noticed that on Study Hub, there is a blank worksheet type folder is also given. So, for instance, if you're going to pick up a question from your kit and if you try solving it up on that Excel sheet on the Word document, that is also going to give you a good sense of satisfaction that how the things are to be actually done on Excel as well as Word document, right? But in today's session, I'll be discussing this September and December 25 attempt as well. So if you are going to do pre-December 25 mock or March, June 25 past exam attempt, that is like going to be sufficient, because in the end, you should have gone through this platform for once or twice so that you may get familiar with how things work. And of course, as what I've told you, that this pre-March mock released by ACCA is going to be your mock as well, which we will test you on probably 21st of February, which is going to be checked by me, and then I'll giving you a detailed feedback, and then a mock debrief will be conducted. And there is like a little bit problem as well when it comes to handling an exam. Those students who usually do not focus on the verb, they usually lose at the end. What is meant by focusing on the verb? See, sometimes it is said in the question to calculate something. So your working should be confined towards number crunching activity. You will have to like applying the format, doing the calculation and all. Sometimes it is said that you need to state something. Then statements are required. Sometimes it is asked in the question to explain something. Then your statements, which are like a little bit comprehensive, needs to be produced so that you will be in a state to explain a certain concept. So you really need to work on these action words, on these verbs, that what your examiner is actually asking. If, for instance, it is said in the question that state, listen to this thing, state corporation tax liability. That would mean obviously students should start thinking that corporation tax liability is something which is to be calculated. Okay, then do the calculation. Once calculation is done, you really need to state the answer in the end as well. For instance, if a company's corporation tax liability is £10,000, then at the end, by the time they would sum up their solution, they would say that corporation tax liability for this company for the year ended 31st December or March, whatever the period is like £10,000. So you'll need to state in the end as well, because this was the verb that they actually required from you. So you really need to focus on what is being demanded. Sometimes, yes, as what I've said, if they say that state corporation tax liability, one must be thinking that corporation tax liability is not something which is stated, it is calculated. Okay, do the calculation first, which is obvious, which is understood, but in the end, state your answer as well, because that must be carrying 1 mark. So this is how you will keep on like smartly grabbing the marks if you focus on the verbs, right? So these are usually those points which one really need to keep in mind in order to pass their exam. And specifically for those students who have unfortunately not been able to make it up before, if they if their score was less than 45 marks, then there is a serious issue with their technical knowledge. For them, I would suggest that they really need to re-enroll themselves in the crash course, so that they will be like given with ample data, they will be given with recorded content, they will have to go through that entire thing, they will have to prepare themselves completely and comprehensively with respect to the technical issues that they had to face previously. And of course, not just they have to go through the entire conceptual thing, simultaneously they'll have to have a good grip on the practice thing as well. And obviously, as what I've told you, for the sake of practice purposes, one must be doing section A and B completely. Either you'll be doing it from Kaplan revision kit or from study hub. But when it comes to section C, I suggest that Kaplan questions are good. Try as many questions as possible, but there is a list of important section C questions as well, which should at least be done. And if those students who are going to resit for TX exam once again, and previously they had secured in between 45 to 49, that suggests that their technical knowledge is somehow good, but maybe they had not been able to pass their exam previously because of not attempting the paper completely. Maybe that is like one thing. Maybe they did not produce sufficient numbers according to the marks associated with the requirement. Maybe they did not focus on the verbs. So there are like trivial, minute issues which are associated with such students who are unfortunately do not who are unfortunately couldn't make it up previously. But majority of the students do not get through their exam just because of like not having a good practice of the questions, or maybe by maybe they have not practiced any of the TX question on the exam platform. So usually those students who secure in between 45 to 49 marks, there is usually not a technical issue associated with such students. These students are felt to have a good knowledge of the syllabus content, right? Okay, so this is something which I've already told you, that you really need to keep an eye over the target associated with every section, and try getting done with each and every section as per the time that you allocate to that particular section, right? Okay, let me just take you to the ACCA CBE platform, and I have selected this September December 2025 exam attempt for you people. This is according to FA24. And as what I've said, that not each and every question could be done by you. There are certain past exam attempts there on the portal. There are even two practice sets available on the portal as well, which have been set according to the next finance act. Well, they are very limited data available to the current finance act, and whatever is like relevant to the current finance act, that should only be done. In fact, there's a specimen exam which is believed to be according to the tax this finance act 24, but there is like a problem with some of their solutions. I mean, two to three questions are not handled appropriately. So do not get yourself confused while doing such practice on the exam platform. Be very vigilant when you are going to do it. Try doing few questions on the platform. I'm not saying that you'll have to do all uh, available assignments over there on the CBE platform. That is not recommended at all. Okay, so as your exam is of 100 marks, it's a computer based exam. And in the start of your exam, you people are given with the instructions. Well, I have already opened it up, so you cannot I cannot go back to the instruction side. But if you really want to see what these instructions were, then can you see, this is the help and tax table. I'm just going to click on it, and there you may find exam instructions once again, right? But I feel that you really need to go through these exam instructions right now, so that on your exam day you will not have to go through each and everything once again. And this is like TX table. I hope you people know that there is like a table related to certain percentages rules with respect to the taxation syllabus. This must be like useful for you people in order to deal with certain concepts. So this is the tax table that will be provided to you people in order to aid you with respect to certain rates, percentages. So I mean, be very careful, as not each and everything related to the syllabus will be provided to you people in your exam as a part of tax table, but still you'll be given with the information related to some important things, and well, that is like going to be useful as well. Okay, I'm just going to cross it, and this is and in today's session I'm going to take a start with section C first, and in tomorrow's session I'll be discussing section A and section B. Well, with September December 2025 exam attempt, which is there on the CBE platform, you may only find section C questions, and this is something which I'm going to do with you people right now. Okay, so this is how you can change the size of the screen. Kindly start reading the question, then I'll discuss the solution with you people. I believe that you people must have gone through the question entirely. Is that so? Now, we are having this first requirement which says that explain if there would have been any CGT advantages or disadvantages to Crute of disposing of his portfolio of quoted shares on 1st April 24 rather than disposing of them on 10th April 24. Your answer should include the calculation of Crute's CGT liability for the tax year 24-25 and should show if there is any tax saving. Together, this is like carrying 3 marks. So you really need to be producing 3 valid points, and that's also in an explanation style. By explanation would not mean that you'll be like making a sufficient I mean, you'll be producing a sufficient sort of information. This is not actually a competition of writing a lot of words. It's like 2 to 3 lines are sufficient. Even if you're going to produce your point, uh, I mean, if you are just going to communicate in a very reasonable way by just mentioning a point in a single statement, in a single line, that is also sufficient as long as things are going to be comprehensively communicated. Okay, so if the shares, the portfolio of quoted shares are going to be sold on 1st April 24, I need to see that what will be the CGT liability. Could you see that it is said that he sold the entire portfolio on 10th April 2024, and this disposal resulted in a chargeable gains of £120,000, and he has not made any other chargeable disposals. See, they might have made the whole calculation confusing. Uh, I mean, not exactly confusing, but they could have made it a little bit comprehensive by telling us what the disposal proceeds are and what the cost is, and then we had to compute the gain. But they have calculated the gain value itself. The gain is £120,000, and there is like no other disposal made in the tax year. So, what the gain figure will be, it's like chargeable gain on the disposal of portfolio of quoted shares will be, it's like 120,000 being the figure of gain. There are no current year capital losses. Then we will be deducting £3,000, which is an annual exemption figure for CGT, and there are no brought forward losses as well. And then we will have to apply the rate. Can you please tell me what rate we need to apply? What rate we need to apply in this case? As shares are being sold, the basic rate is 10% and the high rate is 20%. Well, what do you believe? What should be the rate over here? Yes, it is 20%. Why? Because it is like quite obvious that Crude is like receiving a lot of income, not just in this tax year, but in the previous tax year as well. So, basic rate band is not at all available, which is why when the gains are not going to be accommodated in the basic rate band, then they are going to be charged over a high rate, which is of 20%. Well, can someone please tell me what the answer will be? 120,000 minus 3,000 into 20%. In fact, it is 117,000 into 20%. That would be of 23,400. Is that so? All right. So 23,400 is said to be the CGT liability upon the disposal of portfolio of quoted shares. So this is the first point. Okay. See, there is like a problem that we need to explain what may happen if these shares are going to be sold on 1st April rather than on 10th April. See, there is a gap of just 10 days, whether they are going to sell them on 1st of April or 10th of April, as there's like said to be no such indication that within the 10 days the disposal figure is like going to be changed. So that would mean that gain will remain the same. Either the shares are going to be sold on 1st of April or 10th of April. There is like just a gap of 10 days, which is not a significant one, which is why the amount for which the shares could be sold would remain the same. And that would suggest that the chargeable gain figure will remain the same. I mean, whenever this disposal is going to take place. So this would be like. So the second relevant point is that the CGT liability will be the same whether the shares are sold on either 1st of April 24 or 10th of April 24, considering there is like said to be no change in the disposal figure. So gain will remain the same whether it is like done on 1st April or 10th April. But can you just suggest me that what difference there may arise if the disposal is instead going to happen on 1st of April 24? Does anyone have an idea that what difference we may expect in such case? See, there's a point, I think maybe a change in the tax rate. Let me just tell you that when you have gone through the recordings, I did tell you that the rates are 10% and 20% for the disposal of chargeable asset, and for disposal of residential building there is a difference in the rate. 18% is the basic rate while 24% is the high rate. And I did not tell you that what used to be the rates in the past exam attempts. And keep one thing in mind, that when no such information is given, you need to believe that these rates tend to be the same in the previous tax years, and the same rates will continue in the future tax years. I mean, when it is not communicated to any of you that if there had been like any difference in the rates, then you believe that whatever the rates prevailing now had been and will be the same. Though in corporation tax you were told that there had been a difference in the tax rates in the past, so this is like something that you need to keep that in mind. But if it is not told, then you need to consider that whatever the rates existing now had been and will be the same ones. uh, is my voice clear? Okay, now what the difference is, see, if the disposal happens on 1st of April 24, then this disposal would become a disposal in the tax year 23-24, right? And if the disposal is going to take place on 10th of April 24, then the disposal will be falling in the tax year 24-25. Though the CGT liability, the answer, the taxes value will remain the same, but the tax year is gonna be changed, and this will have an impact. I mean, the due date of payment of tax will be changed accordingly, right? Okay, so it's like if disposal takes place on 1st April 24, then it will be taken as a part of the tax year 23-24, for which the due date is 31st of January 2025, being 31st of January after the end of the tax year. While if disposal would take place on 10th of April 2024, then this would become a chargeable disposal for the tax year 24-25, and hence the CGT liability will be delayed till 31st of January 2026. So this is like how you can delay something. I mean, when you have to pay, let's suppose you have to pay £100. If someone says that you just give a gap of 10 days and then the payment date will be changed accordingly. So it's like if you're going to dispose it right now, you will have to pay that amount on 31st of January 2025. But if you're going to give a delay in the disposal activity for just 10 days, then this would result into a payment of taxes. I mean, there is seem to be a delay of one complete year. So that could be taken as an advantage where one could defer or delay their payments. Is this thing clear? Okay, could you see that how many lines I have produced? How many valid points, in fact, I have produced? I have produced 3 valid points, right? And how much score was associated with this question? Well, it was 3. Yes, 3 marks. It is like enough for 3 marks. Let me just show you the standard solution as well. See, this is how they have like produced the standard solution for this question, and they have like mentioned this one point is for the calculation of CGT. The second point is like telling you that there is like going to be no change in the value of taxes, but the date of payment of tax will be changed. So this is how 3 marks are distributed, right? Okay, now quickly taking you to the second requirement of the same question. As we are done with this first theoretical part, the second part is for 4 marks, and you'll have to deal with 2 sub-requirements for requirement B. The first one is calculate crude's income tax liability for the tax year 24-25, and you are expected to prepare a full income tax uh, calculation for the tax year 24-25, and then if instead of 100,000 dividend income in 24-25, Truth had received additional dividend of 50,000 during both of the years 22-23 and 23-24, then show how much extra tax would have been paid. Okay, deal with every sub requirement step by step. So I am going to deal with the calculation of simple income tax liability for the tax year 24-25. Let me just take you to the data of 24-25. Here, Crude has ceased employment. He's on employment break and he has got a dividend of £100,000. Okay, so keeping these points in mind, let's quickly start calculating your tax liability. Whensoever you are going to calculate a tax liability for any person, first of all, you will be mentioning the name of the person, and then you will write what you are going to do. This is Crute, for whom you are doing income tax computation, and then you need to mention the tax year 24-25. Though we have to make three columns, namely non-saving, saving, and dividend, but I think there is no need to make either the non-savings column or the savings column, because no such information for the tax year 24-25 is given. It's only the column of D which is important over here. How much of the dividend he has received in the tax year 24-25, that is of £100,000. There is no other income. So this is the total income. This is the net income. I'm straight away going to deduct the personal allowance figure. The personal allowance figure is of 12570 and it is deductible. Am I correct? Is 12570 deductible? As we know the fact that when ANI of an individual would be crossing the threshold of £100,000, then ANI, then personal allowance will be restricted. But here it is exact £100,000. So yes, personal allowance is completely available, and this is like to be deducted. So I'm just going to take a start with the sign of minus before that, 12570, and that's how we'll be able to come to know what the taxable income for this individual will be. That's going to be of 87430. This is like said to be the taxable income. By taxable income, I mean to say this is that income on which income tax rates shall have to be applied. Well, our basic rate band can accommodate £37,700, and the basic rate band could be extended, but there is like no such information given over here, which makes me believe that basic rate band is being extended. So on first 37,700, there happens to be a basic rate implication. But before that, one should not forget that there is a nil rate band implication. For dividend, first £500 are always taxed over a nil rate band. That means there's no tax liability on first £500 of dividend. And then, as usually the band which is given in the first step is the basic rate band, out of 37,700, we have applied the rate on first 500, though the rate was zero, but we have considered that thing into account. And the remaining amount, which is there in the basic rate band, will be taxed in a normal way, while the basic rate for the dividend is 8 point what? 8.75%. For that purpose, you may take a help from tax table even. See? 8.75%, right? So that's going to be of 3,255, while the remaining dividend will be falling in the high rate band, and the dividend's high rate is 33.75%. Eight seven four three zero less 37,700 into 33.75%. So that's going to be of 16,784. So altogether, what's going to be the income tax liability for accrued for the tax year 24-25? That's going to be of £20,039. Right? Is this thing clear? Is this thing clear to each and every one of you? All right. Yes, 500 has been removed out of the basic rate band because in case of dividends, first £500 is always taxed over nil rate. Now we need to take into account the second requirement, which is about that if Crude would have received £50,000 in each of the previous two tax years, 22-23, instead of getting £100,000 in the tax year 24-25, then how much extra tax he had to bear in this regard? Okay, so we're comparing. If he receives £100,000 simultaneously, collectively, altogether in the tax year 24-25, we know that how much tax liability he will have to bear, that is of £20,039. So, income tax liability, if dividend is received in the tax year 24-25, in fact, I should say, if £100,000 dividend is received in the tax year 24-25, what the figure for tax will be? This is going to be of 20,039. But instead of this thing, if individual has received £50,000 in both of the tax year 24-20, 22-23 and 23-24, then how much of the extra tax they had to bear? Let's have a look at the information related to the tax year 22-23, where it is said that Crude's employment income was £200,000 in each of the two tax years, which must be making you believe that he's an additional rate taxpayer, right? This £200,000 is quite enough. And he was like already receiving dividend of £5,000 in these two tax years as well, which makes me believe that nil rate band of first £500 has already been consumed because of the dividend originally received. So if instead of 5,000 they received 55,000, I mean £50,000 was additionally received, one thing is that additional rate of taxes will have been charged on this £50,000, and secondly, no nil rate band against £50,000 would then be available because it is consumed against this regular figure of dividend already. Is this thing making sense? Okay. So it's like, All right. So 50,000 pound would be charged over an additional rate. And what the additional rate for dividend is, this is of 39.35% without taking into account the nil rate band because it has already been consumed into 39.35%. And this is like going to be the tax liability for 1 year. So I'm just going to multiply it with 2. As for both of the tax years, this would have been the case. So how much of the tax liability altogether they had to bear? This is of 39350. This would be the tax liability payable had they received 50,000 pound in the tax year 22-23 and then in the tax year 23-24, which makes me believe that this is like a very wise decision of not receiving the dividend in the previous tax years, rather receiving the whole amount of dividend together in the tax year 24-25, because that is then resulting into a very less value of taxes. So how much additional taxes they had to bear had they instead receive the dividend figure in the tax year 22-23 and 23-24? That would be like 19311. This would be the additional amount of taxes had this dividend been received in 2 tax years. Is this thing clear? All right. So now I'm just going to take you to know. Um, could you please tell me that which thing is confusing you? The tax figures. See, originally, what had been the tax implication for the tax year 22, 20, and 23? Um, it's like Crude was receiving an employment income of 200,000 pound and 5,000 was the figure of dividend. So technically, their overall income was of 205,000 pound, which is quite a lot. They must have lost personal allowances already because ANI is found to be like far greater than 100,000 pound. And then on the value of dividend they were actually receiving, they must have used the nil rate band as well. So if they tend to get 50,000 pound as well, then additional rate first of all will have been applied because originally he is now an additional rate taxpayer. The basic, the higher, these bands have been used on the non-savings income column because employment income is on the higher side. So additional rate will be straight away charged, and 50,000 pound was not being received in only one tax year. This would be like receiving in 2 tax year, first in 22-23 and then in 23-24. So it is like altogether in 2 tax years, cumulatively 39350 would have been the amount of taxes that Crude had to bear. But thankfully he did not receive 50,000 pound in 2 tax years, rather he received 100,000 pound collectively, and that's also in the tax year 24-25, and he had taken an employment break, and which is why he was like then falling in a comparatively lower band. I mean, by assessing the dividend in the tax year 24-25 would mean that he will no longer be an additional rate taxpayer, and this is the advantage that he is having this way, right? Okay. Now there is another requirement related to the same question. Requirement C1, it says that on his income in the tax year 24-25, calculate his payment on account for the tax year 25-26 and stating the relevant due dates. And for this part of the question, you should assume that no claim is made to reduce his payments on account. This part is carrying 2 marks, and well, I'll come to this second sub requirement as well. Okay, so see, whensoever we are going to calculate the payments on account for any tax year, the previous year's tax payable and NIC 4 will be picked up first, and its 50% shall be paid in as the payments on account, both as the first payment on account as well as the second payment on account. And for which tax year they are basically talking about? They are asking about the payments on account for which tax year? For the tax year 25-26. So if I am going to see that what is going to be the payment on account for the tax year 25-26, for that purpose, I need to know what had been the tax payable for the tax year 24-25. I mean the year prior to this, as well as NIC 4. As income tax calculation is done already. See, in the previous requirement, we did calculate the income tax figure of £20,039. Plus, we really need to know, practically, we really need to know what an NIC for the previous year as well. But they have given us a hint that we do not need to go into the details related to NIC, rather, just considering his income on the basis of his income. And on income, obviously, what kind of tax one has to bear? That is income tax. So, just on the basis of the income he has, how much of the payment on account he will have to bear, though logically speaking, it is not just based on the income tax, rather the NIC for the previous year as well, which needs to be taken into account in order to calculate both the first payment on account as well as second payment on account. So for instance, if there is like any student who tends to calculate NIC as well for the previous tax year, he would end up wasting 2 minutes additionally, but that would not mean that he will not be given the marks, because this is like quite a confusing line. Students may get confused that whether they will be like doing the whole calculation, which does not only include the income tax figure for the previous tax year but NIC as well, or just they would be getting the hint which is given in the requirement that just based on his income, you just straight away calculate his payments on account. So if you just end up calculating NIC 4 as well, which is well practically correct, you will not be losing your marks. Okay, so 20,039 payment on account will be based on the tax payable for the tax year 24-25. Its 50% shall have to be taken into account. So it's like 20,039. Its 50% shall have to be taken up. Can you please tell me what will be equal to 50% of previous year's tax payable figure? I believe this is going to be of 10,019. And they have also asked in the question that you need to mention the due date for the payment for these payments on account as well. So I'll be mentioning the second point as they will be due on 31st of January 2025 and 31st of July 2025 respectively, right? So how many marks were associated with this? 2 marks, and I have made two valid points. I've mentioned the dates as well as the amount which is going to be due in each of these payments on account, right? And then there is like another requirement. Explain why accrued can make a claim to reduce his payments on account for the tax year 25-26 to zero without there being any responsibility of incurring interest on penalties. You will have to explain this thing, and well, one valid point is sufficient enough. Can anyone make a claim to reduce their payments on account to zero? I mean, if someone would say that, well, I'm not going to pay any of the payments on account, can there be a logical reason behind that? Is that possible? Yes. And what would that be? Keeping the information given in the question in mind, what could be the most relevant solution? Yes, you have given the appropriate answer that if previous year NIC4 and tax payable is less than £1,000, if it is equal to or less than £1,000, then one may make a claim to not pay either the first payment on account or the second payment on account. And there's like one more option as well, that if either equal to or more than 80% of the tax liability is going to be collected through tax its source process, I mean through pay as you earn system, then one may make a claim to not give either the first payment on account or the second payment on account, and the whole liability will be settled in the form of balancing figure. And see, this is just of 1 mark, and considering the information given in the question, what could be the most valid point to be mentioned over here? Though we can state both, but as it is of 1 mark, so we should confine ourselves to only 1 mark. And there's like some specific information given in relation to 25-26 as well. See, it is said that the salary, he'll be like once again doing an employment, and he'll be receiving an annual salary of £175,000, and all of his income tax will be collected at source, I mean during the year, via pay as you earn process. So not just 80%, 100% of his tax is going to be collected through tax at source deduction process, which would mean that he is eligible not to make first payment on account and the second payment on account with respect to the tax year. Rather, he'll be like doing the payments completely and solely in the form of balancing figure. So this was for requirement 1. And this is how I am going to deal with requirement 2. As all the tax liability for the tax year 25-26 will be collected through tax at source deduction process, I mean via pay. That's why Crude can make a claim to reduce his payments on account to zero. I mean, he can simply avoid paying his first as well as second payment on account. Is this thing clear? Yes, that 10 marks question can come from any random area, but see, still it is somehow linked to income tax computation. Well, usually we believe that question number one, which is of worth 10 marks, could be from any area, and it is usually split into numerous sub requirements. And there could be a chance that maybe requirement A would be from CGT, requirement B would be from inheritance tax, requirement C would be from VAT. Even this could be possible. But as far as question 2 and 3 are concerned, we know the fact 100% that one question will be testing income tax rules for sure, and the second question will be testing corporation tax rules, and that's also for worth of 15 marks. Is this thing clear to each and every one of you? All right. Now I'm just going to take you to next question, which is about individuals. And there you go. This is the question. Kindly start reading the question, and then I'll be doing the solution with you people. Is my voice clear? All right. So I was like saying that in this question, they have asked you to produce four badges of trade. Otherwise, in the absence of this explicit requirement, as 2 marks are associated with this requirement of the question, one must have produced only two valid points. But considering they have specifically indicated that you need to write down four badges of trade, then of course you will have to produce four points which are relevant in order to distinguish between trading and non trading activities. Is my voice still breaking up? Is that still not clear? Okay, I hope things know. What about the rest of you? Okay, I just really want to know from each and every person's side if it's like okay or not. Okay, I just wish that things would not go in an ugly direction. Okay, so I will be like writing down four badges of trade which are relevant over here. As we have six badges of trade, but as long as they have asked you to produce four badges of trade, then that's like sufficient. So the subject matter. Subject matter is said to be the first badge of trade, whether the item is acquired for personal enjoyment, I mean for use, or for trading purpose, I mean for resale purposes. If something has been acquired for resaleable purpose, then it would indicate that it is being acquired for the sake of like conducting trade. Then another badge of trade, because it is a generic discussion that needs to be made over here, the length of the ownership. The shorter The length of the ownership period is that would indicate that it is like being held for the sake of trade. But if you're going to own it for a longer period of time, then it would indicate that you have acquired it for the sake of usage purposes, for the sake of personal retention purposes. So the shorter the period of ownership is, more it will be linked to trade, right? Then there are four more badges of trade. If someone could come up with any badge of trade, do you remember any of the badges of trade? The frequency of transaction. So if something is like being frequently sold, it is highly indicating that it is carrying an element of trade in it. So frequency of transaction, frequently, frequent transactions indicate trade. Okay, I think I got an answer from someone. Work carried out on them. Yes, supplementary work in marketing. If a higher scale supplementary work in marketing is being carried out on something being sold, it indicates that trade aspect is involved in it and profit motive. So I would say that evidence of profit motive indicate the transaction to be treated as trade, right? So I have mentioned four badges of trade. There are two more. If you are going to write them down, this will just be like consuming a lot of time. But for instance, if they haven't explicitly said to write down four badges of trade, then I must have produced only two because 2 marks are associated with the requirement. But considering they have specifically mentioned it, so of course I had to go according to what the requirement says. Now, there is a requirement of worth 7 marks where we have to calculate. See, focus on the verb. Here, the calculation is only going to be done. We are going to calculate Michael's tax adjusted trading profit for the year ended 5th April 25 if he elects to use the accruals basis rather than the cash basis. And one should not forget to read the notes. Number one, you should start your computation with the cash basis net profit figure of 76620 and should list all of the items 2 in notes 1 to 5, indicating by the use of 0 any items which do not impact on your computation. However, marks will be awarded for any other approach to determine the tax adjusted trading profit using the accruals basis. And you should assume that Michael does not claim the fixed rate expenses. Okay. So, as far as the calculation already shown in the question is concerned, the figure that I need to pick up to start my computation is the net profit figure of 76620. This is what they have already shown the calculation done on cash basis. I'm just going to pick up the net profit. First of all, do not forget to mention the year for which the adjustment is being done. This trader has made accounts for this. Michael has made accounts for year ended 5th April 2025. Though it is not mandatory to make your accounts from 6th to 5th April, normally self-employed persons make their accounts for 12 months, but these 12 months could be from January to December, from April to March, from July to June, or from October to September. But if someone is like going to follow the tax dates as it is, then it is like up to him. That is totally fine. But this is not compulsory. Okay, so the trading profit already calculated according to cash basis is of 76620. And now I'll have to keep the fact in mind that if the profit had instead been calculated on accruals basis, then what value would be allowed and what is disallowed, right? First of all, I'll be going through these notes one by one. The first note says that receipts of 194,300 exclude amounts owed at receivable of £6,900 at 5th April 25. Okay, so whatever the receiving is shown over here, it doesn't include 6,900, which is the sale figure, which is the receiving sale figure related to the same period of account, but it has not been received. But why did they include it in the first step? Why it is not there in this value? Because they were previously using the cash basis. But if I have to accruals basis, just suggest me what should I do? It is a relatively a different kind of question. What should I do with this £6,900? Yes, we need to add because this value should be taken into account as well, though it was ignored while calculating cash basis, but this should be there because it relates, it matches to the period of account. So I'm just going to take this receivable amount, which is basically a sale figure, sale on credit figure as well. So what that value is, this is of 6,900. It is the income, it is to be added. Then there is the second expense, second note related to expenses list. First of all, they are talking about cost of equipment, which is of 6,200. The second note says that on 10th of April 24, Michael purchased equipment costing £6,200. Let me just tell you that when you are calculating, when you are adjusting profit on cash basis, when whatever the assets you are purchasing, whatever the property, whatever the plant and machinery you are purchasing, the capital expenses, if they are paid, they are deducted. So this 6,200 has been deducted, though it's a capital expense. But when it comes to accruals basis of adjustment, capital expenses, asset expenditures are denied. They are not permitted. They shouldn't have been deducted. So what should I do? What should I do with this equipment? Because considering it is disallowed, what should I do? Yes, we need to add. And yes, you are right. It's an example of property plant and it's an example of plant and machinery, which is why it will be eventually eligible for capital allowance purposes. So I'll be like calculating capital allowances shortly later. But right now, this outright deduction of £6,200 being the capital expense should be reversed. It has to be added back. Its deduction is not permissible. Then the third point is for £2,400 being the loan interest payment. It says that the loan interest is in respect of bank loan of 30,000 that Michael took out to provide working capital for the business. So technically, Michael took out a loan for trading purpose. It's a trading loan, and this is the interest figure. So this is like a revenue expense, normal expense meant for business purposes. So this expense is like totally allowed. But for instance, if it is said that 2,400 has been paid and 600 is also due for this year, which Michael will pay later, not in this period, then in that case, I would have said that 2400 has been paid and 600 is due, is relevant, is accrued for this year. So altogether, 3000 is deductible. But as no other information is given that whether anything is like still outstanding as far as this period is concerned or not, then I believe that 2400 though paid, but it is the only figure which is relevant to the period of account. So this value is deductible, but considering this value has already been deducted and arriving at this profit figure of 76620, so I am not going to deduct it once again. This is like provided with nil treatment. So this is like interest payment, right? Then the next thing is that during the tax year, during the year ended 5th April 25, during the period of account, Michael drove 8,400 business miles and claimed the fixed rate mileage allowance of 3780 on this. And it is said that if Michael uses the accrual basis, he will not use the fixed rate mileage allowance. Okay. See how much of the expense they have deducted. This is 3780. It is being shown in front of note 4. This is the mileage allowance which we claim, which we may claim if cash bases are being applied, though mileage allowances cannot be claimed if one is using accruals basis of adjustment. So this is like no longer applicable. This is to be reversed. This is disallowed 3780. But if this is disallowed, then what is allowed? If any car is being used for both business and private purposes, then the actual running cost related to car for business purposes, when it is being used for business purposes, only that amount is deductible. So this is like something I'm going to calculate as well. Uh, but see, where the information is given as far as the actual running cost is concerned, it is right there in the next paragraph. It is said that the total car expenses, including private usage, it is the total one, includes both business and private expense, for this accounting period ended on 5th April 25 were 5430. None of which are included in the net profit calculation on cash basis. Of course, in cash basis, one has a choice of either applying the actual business expenses or to apply mileage allowance. But with accruals, mileage allowance is obviously not available, which is why we have reversed it. And now the actual running cost should be deducted. But keep one thing in mind, that as long as the running cost is relevant to the business usage of the car, only then it would be deductible. So car's running cost is 3220. The fuel cost is 1670. The speeding fine is 80. Just leave it at a side. It is being incurred by the self-employed person himself. I mean, it is incurred by Michael. I hope you remember that fines and penalties are not allowed. Fines and penalties could be allowed if it is incurred by employees only. But considering it is like incurred by Michael himself, so this is not deductible. And then there is a parking fine as well, but this was incurred when Michael was visiting clients. So this is like once again a fine which Michael had to incur, though he was like performing the duties related to his business activities. But once again, the point is that this is not something which is incurred by his employee. It is he himself who did wrong thing, and which is why he had to bear the parking fine. So as far as speeding fine and the parking fines are concerned, they are not deductible at all. Parking fine could be deducted had they been incurred by Michael's employee while they were doing employment duties, but that's not the case over here. But running cost and fuel expenses are deductible, but this is the total value, and I shall be deducting only that much expense which is related to business use. And how much is like relevant to the business use? It is said in the earlier paragraph that the car is being used for 70% business and 30% for private purposes. So I'm just going to deduct the actual car's running cost, this is to be deducted. So I'm just going to put a sign of minus before that. 3220 is the running cost. Then fuel cost is 1670. The speeding fine is not taken into account. The car parking fine as incurred by self-employed person himself, that's not going to be taken into account. Technically, I have just taken the car running cost and fuel, but that's also not going to be taken completely. Rather, only 70% of it shall be taken into account. So only 3423 shall be deducted. Is that clear? Are you all getting this point? Okay. Then what comes next? And now do not forget that there is like not just the equipment, there is car as well on which we will be calculating capital allowances. Okay, so there is a fifth point which says that the other allowable expenses of 105,300 exclude amounts owed as payable of 5,700 at 5th April 25. I mean, this is the expense relevant to the current period, but considering that was not actually paid, which is why it was not taken into account while adjusting your profit on cash basis. But considering now we are dealing with accruals basis, and whatsoever the expense relevant to the period shall have to be taken into account. So what do I do with these payables? What do I do with these expenses which are still payable, but it is like relevant to this period of account? What should I do? Do I need to add it or deduct it? Either plus or minus. I shall get back to this question shortly later. Just let me just first finish this question and then I'll get back to you. Okay, so what should I do with this payable figure of £5,700? It is the expense incurred, not get paid, but this expense is relevant to the period of account. What should I do with this £5,700? Deduct it. Yes. This is like eligible to get deducted. It is of £5,700. All right. And then the next information is like Michael's employment and rental income information, and the rest of the things are being done. But this was the information relevant to his business. One more thing which I need to adjust while the profit is being adjusted on accruals basis, that is to calculate capital allowances. So you may either make a full, complete, comprehensive capital allowances pro forma, or you may do it shortly over here as the information related to plant and machinery is not comprehensively been given. There are just two things given, two assets. One is equipment worth £6,200, and there's a car as well having a cost of 28,800. So there are just two assets, two plant and machineries in the question. So instead of like wasting your time by making a big performers, I mean slightly bigger formats, try managing the whole calculation in a comparatively shorter way. So with car, as it is like being acquired in the current period of account, this is an addition not qualifying for AIA, right? This is like an addition not qualifying for AIA. And then on this car, either we will be applying the rate of 100% if it qualifies for first year allowance, or we'll be applying the rate of 18% if it is eligible for if it is like being taxed at the rate of 18%, or I mean if it belongs to general pool, depending upon its carbon dioxide emission to be found in between 1 up till 50 grams per kilometer. And if car's carbon dioxide emission is found to be greater than 50 grams per kilometer, then we shall be applying the rate of 6% only, and we'll be treating the car under the special lit pool column. Well, could you please suggest that what exactly the rate do I need to apply over here? Yes, the car is having a carbon dioxide emission of zero. It's a new car. It is like explicitly said in the question. So 100% of the first year allowance will be available, but considering it's an asset with personal use. So only 70% of the allowance will be claimable. I'm just going to start my calculation with the sign of minus because it is capital now, so it is deductible. So 28,800 on this value, 100% first year allowance will be applied, but eventually we will end up claiming 70% being the business proportion of this allowance only. So that's going to be of 20,160 pounds. And if this car would have been acquired either in May, September, December, maybe January 25. See, on the basis of usage, we are not going to apportion the value of capital allowances. It is actually the period for which calculations are being done will dictate that whether the full amount of allowance shall have to be taken into account, so we'll be apportioning the figure of allowance. As the accounts have been made from 6th April 24 to 5th April 25, which means that accounts, the length of the accounts is for 12 months, which is why no further apportionment will be made. Now we have another asset on which capital allowances shall have to be claimed. It's of equipment worth 6,200 pounds. So it is like going to be covered completely under annual investment allowance. So I need to mention that it is like going to be covered completely under annual investment allowance. 100%. 100% is not the rate for annual investment allowance. By writing 100% would mean that completely covered under annual investment allowance. So each and everything has now been taken into account. And finally, I'll come to know what my tax adjusted trading profit will be. So it's like is equal to sum brackets open 76620, taking it down. And that's how my adjusted trading profit figure will turn out to be 58017, right? So this is the adjusted profit figure. If you want to give a little bit, I mean, if you want to enhance what you are done with, you may either turn the answer into the bold digits, you may underline it, or you may even color the cell. So this is how you can make the things a little bit peculiar by telling the examiner that how the calculation, I mean, how, what your answer will be, how the calculation has been arrived at. Okay, so I'm just going to get back to the question asked first, and then I'll come to this question as well. There was a question. Yes. In case of accruals basis, approved mileage allowance for passenger will not be used and actual running expense of business nature will be deducted. Yes, this is correct that when you are applying accrual basis, you will just be deducting the actual running costs relevant to business use and the capital allowances. But approved mileage allowance for passenger is not generally used. And as far as our syllabus is concerned, we are not basically using it at all if accrual basis are to be applied. But in case of cash basis, one has a choice either to use only approved mileage allowance for passenger, or if not, then they can use the actual running expense paid for business purposes as well as the capital allowances for car. Okay, so there is like another question. It's like that, please tell how we can insert the sign of pound as on keyboard the sign of dollar is given. Yes, the dollar sign is not to be given, number one. And number two, it is not compulsory that you will be putting the sign of pound. So if just like how I have done the calculation, you will be like producing all the calculations and you would not be putting the sign of pound before that. That's perfectly fine. Your marks are not going to be deducted. And number one, before that, I must say that with section C, you may even think about inserting or not inserting the sign of pound. But with section A and B, you will never, you will not have to deal with these sign things. Okay, let me just tell you that if you really want to put a sign of pound, first of all, there is no need to put the sign of pound with every value because that will be a very time consuming activity. Usually examiner says that if you really want to deal with the sign of pound as far as section C questions are concerned, then maybe you'll be like putting the sign of pound with the common column. I mean, the column which is like containing all the digits, or maybe with the answer only. Okay, just figure out that in the start, you can see the scratch pad. I'll be using the scratch pad in tomorrow's session when I'll be dealing with you, section A and B. And this is now the symbol. Now click on this and there are 5 symbols that you can insert. Of course, the relevant one is pound. I have clicked on it, insert, and see, it is there. Okay. One more thing. I'm not sure whether the system will support this thing or not. Otherwise, you may copy it from question. Control C is the shortcut used for copy. And I'm just going to move over here. Control V is the sign of pasting. And from question to solution, you may also do it. But as I said that in the start, that whether it is like going to be supported my system or not, let me just tell you that with few systems that students are given with in their exam center usually have some sort of, I don't know, but some sort of like by default issue. They do not copy paste the things from question side to answer side. I don't know what exactly the issue is. It is like the issue with the system itself, or whether the software doesn't support them at that time. But normally it is doable that you're going to copy something from the question side and you're going to paste it on the answer side, the sign on this spreadsheet. Yes, you're right. This is like a good thing for presentation purposes as well. But see, not to produce it with every value, maybe with the answer, or maybe at some point where you're going to show a large range of values. So just to put a sign of pound in the start will actually be indicating to the examiner that all the values will be like falling under this currency sign. Yes, you can add it in the format. All right, so the 7 marks part is done as well. I hope this is understood well. Is that so? I mean, if there is like any issue related to this part of the question, you please let me know by dropping your concern in the dialog box. Now we have the last requirement related to the second question, which is of worth 6 marks. Here we have to calculate Michael's income tax liability for the tax year 24-25. Note your computation should include the tax adjusted trading profit you have calculated under the accruals basis in Part B and should list the items in the additional information section indicating the use of zero, any items which are not taxable or deductible. So anything which you are not going to treat, that should be indicated by applying zero. So first of all, um, whose tax liability is going to be calculated? That's the name is Michael. And then we are going to mention what we are going to do, income tax computation. And then for the tax year 24-25, right? Okay. And then obviously we shall be making three columns, namely non-saving, saving, and dividend. The first thing that we know already, that is the profit, which according to them, whatever is calculated according to accrual basis shall have to be taken into account. The profit on accruals basis is of 58,017 pounds, and it belongs to non-savings column. And then now I'm just going to refer to the information given under additional information section. It says that in addition to self-employment business, the following information is relevant to Michael's income tax liability for the tax year 24-25. The first information is that he is employed part-time. His gross annual salary is 16400, and his employer contributes 820 into their occupational pension scheme for him in the tax year 24-25, and Michael himself is contributing 656. So the first thing is that his salary figure for the whole year is of 16,400. Again, salary being a part of employment income shall have to be taken into non-savings income column. Michael himself is contributing into occupational pension scheme, which is an allowable deduction. So employee contribution by employee shall be deducted, and it is of 656 pounds. And then what about employer's contribution? As Michael's employer is also contributing into the pension scheme on the behalf of his employee, Michael, what has to be the treatment? Yes, it is exempt. And if something is exempt, if it is like not to be taken into account, then according to the notes, we shall have to present the fact with zero. Then the second information says that Michael lets out a furnished spare room. It is not the whole house, it is just a room which is being let out. For the tax year 24-25, he received a rental income of £8,400 and incurred additional allowable expenses of 1260 as a result of letting. He always uses the most favorable basis as regards the tax treatment. Okay, just quickly tell me, what do you believe? Should I go for the normal rental income calculation, or shall I have to apply special treatment, which is about the deduction of rent a room relief? What should I do? Which is going to be the most favorable? Yes, rent a room relief is more favorable, because 7,500 when deducted against 8,400 would result into a lower amount of rental income, and hence tax liability shall be reduced. Instead of like deducting a relatively lower amount of expenses, because that would then be resulting into a higher value of rental income and hence increased amount of taxes. So by applying the most favorable basis, I'm going to calculate rental income by applying rent a room relief. And what would that be? It's like, instead of like doing a calculation separately, I'm trying to accommodate the calculation in a single cell, because it's a very small calculation. So all the calculations should be done. It's not like that you'll be like doing the calculation on your calculator and putting the result straight away. No, your marks will be deducted when it comes to section C questions. Your examiner is highly interested in knowing that how you have arrived at a certain figure. So calculation should be shown. But where you get a margin of squeezing the calculation, you may do it. Similarly, what we have done with capital allowance calculation, where I did not go into the lengthy format presentation thing, rather I did calculate by like squeezing the whole information in just two cells. Similarly, here the rental income could either be calculated by showing a detailed format, or I may do it simply in a single cell, but either way you will have to do it. And of course, you should squeeze your calculations for the sake of saving your time, because time management is an important thing. So 8,400 less 7,500 being special exemption. So the rental income would be £900, right? And then it says that Michael received savings income of 480 during the tax year 24-25. So it's like savings income would mean that he must be receiving interest, the saving income. 480 shall be mentioned under savings column. And then on 1st of February 2025, Michael made a charitable gifted donation of 700 pounds gross. This value will be used at the time of calculating ANI, first of all, and then later this will be used for the sake of extending our basic rate band. Right? Okay. Now I'm going to take the total income for non-savings column first. It's going to be of 74661. For savings, that's going to be of just 480. And for dividend, it is 0. Now, I have calculated the total income. Against total income, we deduct qualifying interest payment, which is not mentioned in the question. So I will simply call it as net income, against which we need to deduct the personal allowance figure. See, the total of the net income is already not much. It is not crossing the threshold of £100,000. Then there is no need to calculate ANI, because in ANI, first of all, we take up the total of the net income, then we deduct the gross gifted donation and gross personal pension contribution in order to lower it down. I mean, we make an attempt to reduce it so that personal allowance could be somehow made available to us. But in this case, the net income total is like already less than £100,000. So this is like going to be just a wastage of time to determine ANI. I know that personal allowance is completely available and it is preferably deducted against non-savings income column. Okay, after deducting 12570, we'll be able to come to know what a taxable amount for this individual for the tax year 24-25 will be. So for non-savings, that's going to be of 62091. For savings, sorry, it's going to be of 480. For dividends, that's obviously 0. I If I don't make the column for dividend, that's perfectly fine because it does not contain anything at all. Okay, and I'm just going to calculate my tax liability, but don't forget, this is the first working that I'm going to do. The basic rate band is gonna be changed. Though the basic rate band accommodates £37,700 normally, but here £700 being the gross amount of gifted donation shall be added into it as well. So the basic rate band will become 38400, and high rate band usually comes to an end on 125140, but 700 is also going to be added into it. So the ending figure on which high rate band would ends up will be extended as well, though the capacity of high rate band is not going to be changed. But I think I should not show where the high rate band would come to an end, because this value is like quite small. It is going to be covered in a high rate band easily and completely. Okay, so start with non-savings income column. First, 38400 will be taxed over a basic rate where the rate is 20%. So it's like 38,400 into 20%. That would turn into a tax figure of 7680, while remaining income 62091 is the total taxable income for non-savings column. 38400 has been taxed, while remaining amount shall be taxed over a high rate of 40%. So this would be like 9476.4. It's not leaving its place. Okay, so the savings figure is of 480 pounds. And see, as he is a high rate taxpayer, so first 500 pound will be taxed over a nil rate. This is 480, so this is going to be taxed completely under a nil rate band where the rate is 0. Okay, so that's how we'll be able to come to know what our tax liability will be. So it's like the tax liability in this case will be of 17156, right? So this is, I just wanted to create a gap, but this is not like letting me applying a cut paste rule over here. So the answer is 17,156 pounds. Is this thing clear? And be very careful that when you will be doing extra workings, you should definitely be mentioning the working reference as it is working one. You might have to produce working 2 or 3, and this is like all done in a vertical manner once you have shown the main format. See, as with Michael, this is the main format where we have shown his income tax computation. Sometimes what students do is that they go in a horizontal direction and they do the calculation simultaneously, I mean parallel to the main format, but this is not the professional approach. Once the main format is done, then in the end, vertically going down, the workings are to be shown, right? All right. Now, students, though this session is to come to an end in next 20 minutes, and this might not be sufficient to like solve the whole of the question number 3, but still we need to try. At least I'll be like showing you a little bit of the calculation, and I may show you the solved version as well. Okay, let's try first, and then we'll try to accommodate as much of the question as possible. This is the third question, of course. It is of worth 15 marks, and this is like relevant to corporation tax rules. Kindly start reading the question. All right, I believe that you people must have gone through the entire, which is a comprehensive one as it carries 15 marks associated with this question. It says, I'm so sorry, this was, so, okay, so this is the question. On the basis that all available claims and elections are made, we need to calculate Sliving Limited's taxable total profits for the year ended 31st March 25. As we know that a company shall have to do their corporation tax computation according to an accounting period, and well, accounting period is the period in which number of months can either be 12 or less than 12. It says that your computation should commence with the draft trading profit figure of 982,200 pounds, indicating by the use of zero any items that do not require adjustment or are not to be included. Well, I am going to start with the question and I'll keep on showing you the standard solution just for the sake of saving the time. As the company has made accounts for year ended 31st March 25, that means their accounting period is of 12 months. Their draft figure for profit is 982,200. So we are going to take our start with this figure of 982,200 pounds. And see, in case of companies, there is no option of either choosing the cash basis or accrual basis. We are just having one treatment available, and that is the accruals basis. So this figure is before making any deductions arising from the following expenditure. I mean, these expenses are yet to be taken into account. Before legal fees for the year totaling 33,730, these are in connection with. So this is like all about legal fees, a purchase of freehold buildings, an issue of £1 ordinary shares, the registration of trademarks, and the repayment of loans. This is how the total legal fee, which is not yet deducted against this trading profit of 982,200, is of 33,730. See, well, what I said that companies have to follow accruals approach, and accrual says that no capital expense shall have to be taken into account. So when it comes to the purchase of the building that is not deductible, well, keep one thing in mind that if this had been the question of an individual, a self-employed person, rather than a company, though individuals do have a choice of applying cash basis and ignoring accruals basis, still with cash basis you cannot deduct the capital cost related to building, land, or car. But see, with accrual basis, no capital expense is deductible, so no deduction for 16280 shall be made. And issue of ordinary shares, see, this is also a capital activity because this is not something to happen in routine. This happens as a one-off activity. This is not an expense, so this is not deductible, and this is an exceptional thing, despite the fact despite the fact uh, issuance of registration of trademark or registration of patent, copyrights, or payment for the patents or the copyrights. This is like all the capital activities, but still HMRC has specifically allowed them, so they should be deducted. Now the thing is, as this 2880 has not been deducted against this 982,200, so I will be deducting this 2,880 pounds. But for instance, if it is said in the question that 2880 has already been deducted while arriving at this profit figure of 982,200, then I would not be doing anything further. I would have mentioned zero in front of registration of trademark because the relevant deduction, the relevant treatment has already been made. Then it is about the repayment of loan notes for 5470 pound. See, usually acquiring the loan is a capital activity, but repayment of the loan, repaying the loan along with the interest, this is something which could be taken as a normal activity. But for that purpose, I need to go through note number 5. It says that before the deduction related to notes of 220 thousand pound which were repaid on 31st May 24, together with the interest of 3,300 pounds for the 3-month period March to May 24. An accrual of A1 1,100 pound was brought forward at 1st April 2024. The loan notes were issued in order to finance Sliving Limited's trading activities. So the thing is, See, whenever you're going to take a loan, you really need to consider whether the loan is being taken up for trading activities or for non-trading activities. The loan notes were issued. That means the company took a loan in order to finance their trading activities. So this is a trade-oriented loan. But then, as the loan note has been repaid along with the accrued interest, see the repayment of See, what do you think whether the loan note repayment should be treated as a capital activity or a revenue activity? Acquiring a loan, let me just tell you, acquiring a loan is a capital activity. What about loan repayment? See, acquiring a loan for trading purposes is basically a routine activity. Whenever you're going to obtain a finance, it is to be treated as a routine activity, but the loan itself is not going to be deducted ever against the trading profit figure. It is the legal fee associated with the loan which is deductible. See, the focus is the legal fee. Legal fee, if it is like related to the issuance of ordinary shares is a one-off activity, and if any legal fee or professional fee is associated with it, that is also to be treated as a capital expense and it is disallowed. It should not be deducted. Loan note, I mean, acquiring loan is a routine activity, but have you ever seen deducting the amount of loan, the liability figure against the trading profit figure? See, trading profit is basically based on income and expense rules. It is not going to accommodate the repayment of loan itself. So the loan itself is never to be deducted whether it is received or repaid, but the legal fee associated with it will be like carrying a different image, as loan is something which a company or an individual keeps on like acquiring at different points in the life of the trade. So this is not to be treated as a very one off activity. So if any legal fee is associated with it, that is deductible. See, the emphasis has to be on legal fee. The legal fee, as the loan is being acquired for trading purpose, if it is like being repaid, even if it that was a trading loan, so this 5470 is deductible. So 2880 and 5470 is deductible. Let me just show you the solution till now. Okay, that's the point. 982200 is the value of our draft trading profit figure. The legal fee associated with purchase of office building and issue of ordinary shares being the capital activities, so they are not going to be deducted, but the legal fee related to the trademark and the expense relevant to trademark itself, that is also deductible, and the legal fee associated with the loan note repayment, that is deductible as well. Then the next thing is that before qualifying charitable donations of £4600 and political donations of 600 which Sliving Limited made during the year ended 31st of March 2025. See, political donations are disallowed. They should not be deducted. And qualifying charitable donations are deductible, but they are not deductible against the trading profit alone. Rather, they are going to be deducted against total profit figure. I hope you remember that how the companies calculate their corporation tax format, where they have to make a total profit pro forma against which this 4600 pound being the qualifying charitable donation is going to be deducted, and no such treatment shall have to be made against trading profit figure. So let's quickly move to the standard solution. See, qualifying charitable donation is not going to be deducted because it is deducted not against the trading profit but against the total profit figure. And political party donations, donation to political party is not an allowed expense. So we have mentioned zero because these expenses have not been deducted in arriving at the draft profit figure of 982200. Then they have given the third piece of information that before the annual investment allowance available in respect of expenditure on a second hand freehold warehouse which was purchased for 292,000 pound on 1st August, the warehouse was originally constructed 15 years ago. So this building is like quite an old one, and all the buildings which were constructed before 2018 October, they will not be eligible for structures and building allowance. Are you getting my point? So the original cost of the warehouse is not eligible for structures and building allowance because it is constructed very old. It got constructed 15 years ago. But recently, what is happening right now as far as the information is concerned? There's a question that since when we can apply the structures and building allowance, all those constructions which have happened on in October 2018 and onwards, this would actually be allowing us to calculate structures and building allowance, right? Okay, so it is said in the question that the building was originally constructed 15 years ago, but now further expense is being incurred. Right? So it is said that before the annual investment allowance available in respect of expenditure on a second-hand freehold warehouse which was purchased for 292,000 pound on 1st August, the warehouse was originally constructed 15 years ago, and the company and the vendor of the warehouse have made a joint election to allocate the purchase cost of 292,000 as follows. The building is costing 182,400. The land is costing 71,000 pound. Then the ventilation system and the heating system are costing 14,700 and 23,900 pounds respectively. So that is how the total purchase cost is of 292,000 pounds. So the first thing would be that we need to calculate the annual investment allowance on the ventilation system and the heating system because they are not the part of the building, rather they are the integral features of the building. I hope you remember that all the integral features of the building, be it ventilation system, heating system, lifts, elevators, escalators, these all are to be counted as an example of plant and machinery, and they are to be taken up under special rate pool, where in the first year annual investment allowance shall have to be made, and then subsequently we shall be applying the rate of 6%. Though we may go for enhanced capital allowances value as well, but as in case of company, enhanced capital allowances is something which is available. But in case of even ECA, first of all, we apply AIA, and then on the remaining value of the asset, we shall be applying first year allowance at the rate of 50%. And I hope that whether they'll be going in a normal way or they'll be applying enhanced capital allowances, either way, this value is like going to be covered completely under annual investment allowance. Let me just show you that. Just quickly have a look at the annual investment allowance thing. When calculating annual investment allowance, this is all about plant and machinery. So it doesn't include the building or the land cost, but it does include the ventilation system and the heating system. So altogether, the plant and machinery is costing £38,600, which is going to be covered completely under annual investment allowance. Now, 38,600 is the value of AIA to be claimed on integral features of the building. Then the next thing is there is no opening pool value. I mean, neither related to main pool or the special rate pool. Otherwise, we would have calculated capital allowances in a normal way as well. And then in the fourth statement, it is said that before the structures and building allowances available in respect of a newly constructed office building. See, on the warehouse, I did not calculate SPA, though that was a building as well, but that was an old building. If it is said it's a newly constructed office building, any construction that is made, that is done in October 2018 or afterwards, that will qualify for structures and building allowance. It is like acquired for £384,000 for the builder, but the purchase price includes value for the land for £94,000. See, first of all, land doesn't qualify for SPA. Only the structures will qualify for structures and building allowance. So 384,000 less 94,000. Only the building cost will be considered for calculating SPA. And the rate of SPA is 3%. And it is apportioned according to the period for which the building is used for business purposes. As it was brought into business use on 1st of November. So it's like November, December, January, February, and March. Till the end of an accounting period, they have just used the building for 5 months. Unlike capital allowances, it is prorated according to the period for which the building is being used for business purposes. So let's have a look at this thing. If the total building cost is £384,000, we have removed the cost of building. Sorry, we have removed the cost of land in order to determine the cost of building only, on which SPA shall be charged at the rate of 3%. But considering this was first brought into a business use in November, so the structures and building allowance has to be portioned over a period of 5 months. So that's how much of the allowance, the structure and building allowance is available. This is of £3,625, right? Okay. Now we have the fifth point, and after fifth point, I'll end the session here. From fifth, from the information related to chargeable gains and onwards, we'll be like dealing with the rest of the question in tomorrow's session. But till point number 5, I'll have to take into account what has happened, because this is how at least I'll be able to adjust our profit. So it says that before the deduction relating to loan notes of 220,000 which were repaid, loan repayment and loan acquisition, as what I've told you, shall not be treated against trading profit figure, but it does include an element of interest as well. So how much of the interest was paid? It was 3,300, and there was an accrual of 1,100 brought forward as well. So that might be testing your accounting skills. What is meant by brought forward opening accrual? Is that relevant to the current period or was that relevant to the previous period? A little bit of the accountancy rules are being treated over here, but I think being ACCA students, you should know that thing. What is the status of an accrual existing on 1st of April 2024, being the start of the period? So we call it as a brought forward accrued expense or opening accrual. Would that be considered as relevant to the current period, or is that to be treated as relevant to the previous period? Nobody knows that. And this is the only thing which I have also seen in many questions of corporation tax. If you just go through the questions of CT from Kaplan revision kit, there are further questions as well where this thing was tested before as well. What is an opening accrual? Does that expense relevant to the current period? Or opening accrual would mean that this expense is like relevant to the previous period but paid in the current period. See, opening accrual would mean that this expense, though paid in the current period, but this is not matching with the current period. This was like matching, this was accrued to the previous period. So this is like not relevant to the current period. And as I am applying accruals concept over here, so it shall not be taken into account. £3,300 though paid in this period, but 1100 is not relevant to the current period. I'm just going to remove it in order to see that how much of the expense is like relevant to the current period from April 24 to March 25, and only that much expense is going to be deducted. Okay, let's have a look at the solution. See, 3,300 less £1,100, £2,200 is going to be deducted only because this is the expense which is matching with the current period. And after doing this thing, we have been able to come to know what our tax adjusted trading profit will be. Though they had calculated a draft profit figure, but by applying the treatment to all those expenses for which no treatment was initially been made, we have come to the conclusion that this 929,425 is the revised figure for profit. Basically, it is actually the tax adjusted trading profit. And I'm just going to take a stop over here. The rest of the question will be done in tomorrow's session along with section A and section B questions. But do let me know that if you people have any issue related to the treatment that we have applied so far as the adjustment of trading profit is concerned. If you people have any query, please let me know by dropping a concern in the dialog box. Is this trading profit calculation making sense to you all? That means that there is no query as far as the adjustment of trading profit is concerned. Is that so? Okay. Now, students, do you people have any question in general? If yes, then please let me know by dropping your concern in the dialog box. In tomorrow's session, I'll be discussing section A and section B question, and simultaneously I'll tell you that which things are to be taken care of while dealing with OTs and OT cases. And of course, first of all, we'll have to get done with this question and then we'll move forward to section A and B. So, is there anything in general you need to ask? If there is anything else, please let me know by dropping your concern in the dialog box. All right. So, I just hope that this session had been fruitful to all of you. You must have got many new things into account. You must have learned a lot. If there is like still any issue, you may contact me as per your convenience. So, right now I'm signing off. We'll meet you tomorrow in webinar, game changing webinar session, day 2 for taxation. Till then, goodbye.